Welcome to breeding season. So why are we breeding in the middle of winter time? Well, we in particular want our cows to calve out in the fall. But let's talk about a number of different ways that you can do this. There are a few considerations with cattle. Cattle have a 9-month gestation, similar to humans, and you really should wean the calves 2 to 3 months before the cow gives birth to its next calf, and that'll allow its udders to dry out before they start refilling again for the next calf. Some different breeding programs you can choose then is to breed in the winter, calve in the fall, and wean in the summer. Another option is to breed in the summer, calve in the spring, and wean in the fall. So there's a number of different options you have, and you can pick other ones besides that, but those are the two main ones. If you're calving in the fall, you're doing that so that the calves can get some weight on them before winter time and be able to survive through the winter a bit better with some weight. And they're starting to come into the time of their life where they're eating a considerable more amount of hard matter versus milk. So you get them out onto spring grass when they're already got some decent weight on them, they're gonna put some damage on that grass. The spring blush is when the most grass grows, so that time period where they're eating so much is a really good time to have them out there. If you're calving in the spring, then you've got them also in more temperate environments, so they're not freezing or not too hot, and they get some weight on them, and they, in their very first year, have a lot of grass to eat, and they can get a lot of good weight on them before they go into their first winter. So those are the two main reasons that people calve the 2 different times a year. There's good arguments on both sides of that, so what some farmers will do if they've got a big enough herd is they'll calve both in the fall and in the spring in 2 separate herds, and that is nice because you have multiple ages of calves so that as they grow out and become market ready, you've got a nice spread of ages and you can have a nice consistent month-over-month availability of cows for your market. So this is our bull for the year. We rented a bull this year, but there's different ways you can get a hold of a bull. You can buy one, you can rent one, or you can work out a borrowing arrangement with another farmer. So buying a bull is going to be the most expensive, of course. Bulls are considerably more expensive than buying a cow, and you have to maintain that bull all year long. You only need him for 3 months out of the year, but you have to maintain him for the other 9 months. Bull is generally twice the size, the mass of a cow, and it's going to cost you twice as much to maintain that bull throughout the season. Renting, on the other hand, is considerably cheaper than buying a bull, and you get the benefit of having different genetics all the time versus the same bull every year to get genetic diversity into your herd, or some sort of arrangement to borrow a bull if you maybe co-own a bull with another farm and have 2 different breeding schedules, or you know a local farm that's just like, you know what, I don't want to have to maintain the bull for these additional 3 months. I'd rather just rent him out to you or loan him to you. In our experience, renting bulls, when we have the bull, the amount of hay we go through and the amount of pasture we go through in the springtime are definitely noticeable when that bull is there versus when the bull leaves. So let's talk about buying a bull. So we bought that bull, we have a lot of money invested into that bull. We have to pay to maintain the bull throughout the season. We have to keep the bull separate from the cows outside of breeding season. And you have to make sure that you don't breed back to his same daughters and inbreed them. But there is a financial strategy that actually makes this worthwhile. You can purchase a bull, breed him for 2 years, and because his daughters take 2 years to grow out, the first 2 years he's breeding to the same cows or new heifers coming into the herd that are not his. If you call him after 2 years and buy a new bull, then you've got the new genetics in, and the new bull is breeding back against the old bull's daughters, so there's no inbreeding going on. Now, what do you do with that very expensive bull that you've got? For us in the grass-fed world, lean ground beef is a really popular item. People want 100% grass-fed, very clean, lean ground beef. And while our cattle, this particular breed, Red Devon, as we've talked about in other videos, they will finish out at 80-20 fat content. The bull, because he is just all muscle, is going to finish out at more like a 90-10. He's also twice the size of the cows, so the amount of meat on his carcass is very large compared to the cattle. So you buy the bull, breed him for 2 years, call him out, and sell him as lean grass-fed ground beef. You can, at the current price of ground beef, and especially that niche market of grass-fed lean ground beef, make back on him and generally profit off of what you originally paid for that bull. So if you look at it that way, he is going to, 2 years down the line, pay for himself, so you're not having to rent in a bull is a good strategy. Now let's say we want to rent a bull. That is nice. You don't have to put as much money down on the bull. You're not paying for him. You're not maintaining him all throughout the year. And you get the benefit of genetic diversity. Every year you get a different bull in. You can go to different farms and rent a bull. And that way the replacement heifers that come down the line from his offspring have different genetics in them. And you can use that to both build your herd and then improve your herd over time. Now the consideration with renting a bull then is where to find one. You need to make sure that there are bulls within driving distance that you can rent that are both the genetics that you're looking for, the breed you're looking for, the temperament you're looking for, versus buying a bull, you've got a bigger market to pick from. For us in our particular market, grass-fed market, red Devon cattle in particular, it's a bit more of a niche market. However, these are popular enough that we can find a number of different farms that raise out high-quality bulls from different genetic lines, and we'll rent them out. Lastly, you've got the borrowing arrangement. This works really well if you can partner with another farm, share the cost of that bull, possibly 3 or 4 other farms, if you can find 3 or 4 other farms that each have different breeding cycles. And that way you can take the cost of that bull and only pay half or a third or a quarter of the cost of that bull. And you don't have to maintain it all year. You only have to maintain it for the 3 months inside of your breeding season. While you probably are only going to be able to find one other farm in driving distance that has your breed, has the same mentality as you do about how to take care of those animals, and has a different breeding season than you're still cutting your costs in half. You're cutting your maintenance costs in half. It's still a really solid strategy. Or if you're very lucky, you can find another farm that owns a bull, doesn't really have financial aspirations from that bull, and just doesn't want to have to pay for that bull outside in their breeding season. And therefore they will loan it to you so that you can take care of that bull and feed that bull, and they don't have to, and you get the breeding benefit out of it. Now, ram considerations are a little bit different. Rams don't cost nearly the same amount that a bull does. In fact, the ratio between what a ewe costs and what a ram costs is very, very close to each other. They're only about $100 more depending on your breed. So to buy in a ram is really not that big of an expense. Now, the breeding season of a sheep is going to be the same as the breeding season of a cow lengthwise, but because of the way that the lambs grow out, if you wean the lambs out and get them out of there, you can actually leave the ram in with your ewes year-round and possibly get that second out-of-season breeding from your ewes. You don't have the same financial benefit of being able to sell the ram for meat because mutton just doesn't go for the same higher price. But sheep are inexpensive enough that a lot of folks or have 2 rams in the 2 different flocks and flip-flop them every few years in order to maintain genetic diversity and minimize inbreeding. So while ownership of a ram is a lot easier to get around, renting a ram is a lot harder. Cattle are just more available in general. There's more farms in America doing them, so it's more likely to find a farm that's renting your breed of cattle. But for ram, on the other hand, there's not as many farms raising sheep out, so whatever breed that you have, there's going to be less options available to you. And frankly, it's just not an industry standard to have people that rent rams out as much as there is farms that rent out bulls. The last breeding consideration then is AI. This is not artificial intelligence, this is artificial insemination. The nice thing about AI is that you can buy straws from champion lines of cattle and sheep and whatever you're looking for. You can buy them for fairly inexpensively compared to what it costs to buy or rent a bull or a ram, and you're able to specifically choose which genetics you want. When buying or renting, you're limited to just that one that you're buying or renting. When AI, you can purchase from bulls all over the world, and it isn't just one farm that has access to that bull. You could have many different farms that are breeding back to the exact same bull because the bull is not involved, you're just using his semen. But there's additional considerations that come into play when you're dealing with AI. Our bull, as you can see, is following the female around that's about to come into heat. He knows when she's coming into heat, and he'll breed her when she's in heat. Cattle only come into heat once a month, and generally for only about 1 day of the month. If you're AIing, then you need to monitor your cattle very closely to make sure they come into heat at the right time. A number of ways of doing this is taking a steer and putting them out with your females. The steer will start to follow and mount the females just like an intact male would, but without the risk of breeding them. You monitor your cows as soon as a cow comes into standing heat, which is when she doesn't walk away from the bull, as most of the attempts are, the cow will walk away from the bull. When she's in standing heat, that means she's going to stand and let the bull mount her. When the steer shows that the female is in standing heat, you can take her, put her into a headlock, and then you can perform the AI. Other ways of dealing with this are certain ear tags or tags you're able to put on the cow that monitors their estrogen levels and can see when the estrogen spikes and tell you this is when she's going into heat. A lot of big farms do this, especially in the dairy world, because they have RFID tags on their cattle. They're passing through gates, they have RFID readers, and they can tell exactly down to the hour when that cow goes into heat and then can AI her. In a beef herd out in the field, it's a bit harder to do, but there's still ways you can do that. Tags, little turn colors when the cow goes into heat. Another way they manage it is giving medicine to a cow that'll cause her to go into heat, thereby allowing you to cause your entire herd to go into heat at the same time and AI them all in one day. Here at Redemption Springs, we really like calving in the fall. We like that because then the cows can get some decent weight on them before the winter hits. That way, 2 years later, they're maturing in the fall time frame, and we can start to get them off of our books before the winter time. We start having to feed hay. And by the time the spring blush comes around, the calves are at a really decent size, 300, 400, 500 pounds, and they're going to get a lot of use out of that spring blush. The other consideration is the bull rental. We currently rent a bull, and the bulls are available to us in the wintertime. And lastly, it aligns with our sheep breeding schedule. At Redemption Springs then, we've purchased our ram. We separate him out in the summertime, so we do not have out-of-season breeding. And because Aiden is so friendly, he's able to stay at the farm with us. We don't really have to maintain him in some other field and fencing and all that. It's a lot easier with him.